Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to our webinar on globalization and localization, experiences in the local Philippine context. So, before we proceed to our main topic, we will begin this program with a prayer.
Ko'y kau kami gim to langit. Si ko'y kau kami gim to adoy bulan. Ikaw ang nabuhat sa kabituunan. Ikaw ang nabuhay sa kalibutan. Manama, marantog ka. Warpo ko ilingkoy ko. O Diyos, kahit bulungan ka. Busa ikaw lang ang simbahan ko.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم آمين يا رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم اجمع شامل المسلمين والكريستيان والروم الدين مدينة نبعه وسلم دائما مجتمعنا هذا بالسلم والأمن والتقدم في بلدنا هذا آمين يا رب العالمين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين يا رب العالمين.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times we have offended you, when we forget to acknowledge your presence in the image of our brothers and sisters, and for moments we fail to be good stewards of the blessings you have given us. Continue to guide and protect each one of us, Lord, that we may always walk in the light of your everlasting love and mercy. Grant us, Father, with your comfort in times of distress and with your strength in times of weakness. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with the prayer and intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
Manama, marantog ka. Warpo ko ilingkoy ko. O Diyos, kahit bulungan ka. Busa ikaw lang ang simbahan ko. Busa ikaw lang alagaran ko.
All right, so today's topic will mainly focus on globalization and localization, experiences in the local Philippine context. So when we say globalization, it is one of the most important phenomena of the recent past and of course the future. It is also a process of interaction and integration among the people, companies, and government of different nations, a process driven by international trade and investment and aided by information technology. This process has effects on the environment, on culture, on political system, on economic development and prosperity, and on human physical well-being in societies around the world. Globalization is not new though. For thousands of years, people and later corporations have been buying and selling to each other in lands at great distances. For centuries, people and corporations have invested in enterprises in other countries. The term glocalization, which had become a buzzword in business world, describes a historical process whereby the local is integrated into the global. This means that localities develop economic and cultural relationships to the global system through information technologies, bypassing and subverting traditional power hierarchies like national governments and marketing, including culture clash with newly introduced cultural concepts, ideologies, and practices. Technically, it is a combination of the words globalization and localization and emphasize the idea that a product or a service is developed and distributed globally is more likely to succeed if it is adopted to the specific requirements of local practices, legislation, fiscal regime, socio-political system, cultural expectations, local laws, customs, and consumer preferences. So to put it simply, globalization is a move toward centralization, and localization, on the other hand, is a move toward decentralization. So to give us more knowledge on globalization and localization, particularly on its effects and responses, socio-political and economic profiles, globalization initiatives, local responses to globalization, issues or problems faced concerning globalization, possible interventions and localization in the local context, we will have guest speakers to further discuss the topic. To begin with, let me introduce our first speaker for this morning. She is a third year student from College of Arts and Sciences, specifically in Mathematics and Statistics Department. She is also the ongoing president of Mathematics Students Organization. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Ms. Carla Fe Masibay.
So, good day everyone. I am Carla Femasibay and I'm going to present to you what is globalization and glocalization. Globalization and localization. Let's start with globalization. It is the word used to describe the growing interdependence of the world's economies, cultures, and populations brought about by cross-border trade in goods and services, technologies, and flows of investment, people, and information. Countries have built economic partnership to facilitate these movements over many centuries. So, according to the text, globalization means there is an interdependence between different countries. So, naay connection from one country to another country where they pass their goods and their investments para ang economic status is dili lang ang one country ang mag-improve and ang ilang mga local products kay mag-circulate pod sa uban. Now, let's proceed to glocalization. The term is used to describe a product or service that is developed and distributed globally but is also adjusted to accommodate the user or consumer in a local market. So as what you can see in the diagram, localization comes from two words, globalization and localization. So there is still a globalization pero gi-adjust siya, gi-localize according sa market, according sa mga needed. Products that are localized are by definition going to be of much greater interest to the end user, the person who ends up using the product. This is because while it's something that everyone can use and has use for as a global product, its localization makes it more specific to an individual, their context, and their needs. So, kung globalization man good kay wide kaayo siya tapos ang ato abi ang globe kay composed of different countries and ang different countries kay nailahi-lahi nga culture, traditions and belief. So kailangan i-localize tong mga naka products nga kanang gina-produce globally. For example, um McDonald's. Ang McDonald's kay per country na sila specific nga mga goods nga dito lang po siya ma-distribute. Na ay mga fast food chain nga McDonald's nga ang nagaproduce sila og black and white na buns. Na ay pure white na buns, na po'y pure black na buns. Kay naiuban nga tao nga pagtanaw pa lang nila sa white na bun kay marag wala, dili sila interested kay dili man to sila locally inclined sa ilaha. So, mao to, nag-produce sila duha so that ang person nga mag-buy kay na siya options. Ang localization pod kay obvious pod siya nga makita nato sa media. For example, ang media, di ba, aware ta nga na ay Big Brother sa other countries na po'y Got Talent, American Got Talent, Pilipinas Got Talent. So, ang localization dito nga na-incline kay for example, kita as a Filipino, ang likas sa to nga talent is ang balagtasan, tula, balak, mga ingana nga mga talents ang known sa tong country nga kapag nakay ingana kay marag nakay pagka Pilipino jud. If ever mag-present kag ingana sa American Got Talent, do you think naka-localize ang imuhang talent? Do you think mag-click ka kapag dito ka mag-join sa American Got Talent? Di ba dili? Because ang local nga culture, local nga talent sa ila is dili ka ng ingana na talent. That's why na ay localization nag-produce pod og Pilipinas Got Talent kay pagka na nga talent nimo diri sa Philippines nimo i-show bali dira ka mag-click ang market, so mo na dira na insert ang localization. Kapag katupong sa Big Brother lahi pod ang ilahang ways sa sa mga housemates dito sa other countries kay nakadepende pod sa ilang tradition, while diri pod sa Pinoy Big Brother lahi pod kay we adopt our own culture. So, here is a diagram. Glocal. It is inclined with the words individual, group, unit, organization, and community. So, a certain individual, kapag mahimo na siyang two or more, mag-create na siya og group. Ang group pod, kapag two or more groups, it could become a unit. Two or more units become an organization, and two or more organization creates a community. Mo na sila ang mga naga-compose sa ginabasihan nga local or localization. Ang mindset is globally pero ang pag-act or pag-produce is locally. So here are other examples na ingon na nako kaganina, again media, The Voice, Got Talent, and many others. Fast food chains, ang akong na example is McDonald's, pero napoy uban nga fast food chains nga naga-practice pod og localization kay grabe man ang competition sa market if dili sila mag-adapt ana. So mag-lower ang ilahang ano marketing cost tapos ang other kay sila na pud ang mag-increase kay grabe ang ilahang market mas daghan ang mag-avail sa ilang product. So sa competition kailangan nila mag-adapt locally. Cars, halimbawa sa cars kay naiuban nga country nga ang steering wheel kay sa right side located napoy uban na countries nga ang steering wheel kay sa left side. So for example, ang Ford mag-produce sila og isa ka certain brand i-market nila, mag-create sila ads pero ang pag-produce nila naka-specific siya locally, different ang ilahang ma-produce na products depende sa kung unsa ang need sa particular na country. Kaya dili man pwede nga sa country nga ang steering wheel nila kay dapat sa right, ang ilahang ibaligya dito kay katong mga naa sa left ang steering wheel. So dili mahalin, ma-useless ang ilahang product. Kailangan kanang flexible ang ilahang designs nga maka-adapt pod locally. So I have example. Is example for McDonald's. 'Di ba, we all know na sa India, ang mga tao dito kay hilig sa spices and para sa ilaha ang meat sa cow kay very sacred so wala sila nagakaon og meat sa cow. So ang gihimo sa McDonald's ang ilahang beef burger na which is known and kanang very mabenta sa uban na country kay gilahi nila, gitawag nila Aloo Tikki Burger in India. It is produced by different kind of meat as long as dili siya kanang meat sa cow kay para ang ilahang market dito kay paspas na locally inclined pod sa mga Indian. So we will proceed with another topic na aligned gapon sa globalization and localization. Asian regionalism. Asian regionalism is the product of economic interaction, not political planning. As a result of successful outward-oriented growth strategies, Asian economies have grown not only richer but also closer together. In recent years, new technological trends have further strengthened ties among them, as have the rise of the PRC and India and the region's growing weight in the global economy. But adversity also plays a role. So, giingon diri na countries in Asia kay naging closer together. Part pod sa reason nga nung ang countries sa Asia kay naging closer together is globalization through the new technologies karon kay mas faster na ang pag-communicate from one country to another. So if ever na sila'y goods or bag-o nga mga products nga kanang na-reproduce locally tapos pwede ipasa sa other country nga kanang adapt nila kay dali na lang ang communication, closer sila tapos nagaset pud sila boundaries nga nagaset sila og local boundaries nga dili pud ma-deprive ang sa particular country. So kaning Asian regionalism kay founded ni siya sa countries na India, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. So known pod ani ang ASEAN organization to be particular. So I think I've already discussed everything: globalization, glocalization, and Asian regionalism. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Carla. So, we've heard so much from our first speaker, but it's not the end yet. We will have a short break first, and afterwards, we will welcome another guest speaker. So, just stay right there.
So, I'm an American, but I was born in England, spent 2 years in China, and then made my way here. I speak Spanish, want to study in Brazil, and then live in Australia. Right now, my best friend is from India, and my boyfriend, well, he's American too, but his parents are Egyptian. Mine are Canadian. So, who am I? I'm someone that wouldn't exist were it not for a connected world, which, oddly enough, is the same for my phone. My phone consists of a South Korean screen, utilizing Taiwanese Touch ID, and containing Thai transistors. It contains custom Cambodian capacitors, Swiss semiconductors, and a German accelerometer. Although it was assembled in America, like me, it was made in the world, which means that this amazing piece of technology is only possible when there's cooperation on a global scale. If the Malaysians mistakenly manufacture the wrong memory cards, then no phone. If the Chinese chip for Wi-Fi is withdrawn from world trade, no phone. And if Japan stops making ramen, well, that has nothing to do with the phone, but oh, delicious ramen. Sorry. Basically, if any barriers prevent the global machine from running smoothly, then no phone. It's globalization at its finest. The entire world working together to lower costs, scale production, and innovate. It's an incredible system. Incredible! Except for things like child labor, of course. Normally we don't hear about that bit. Just like we don't hear about who mines the cobalt for the long-life battery. Perhaps you can guess why. For globalization to work best, we need to have global standards. Global standards for employment, tax, and the environment. If we're to have global products, we need global rules. Otherwise, how can we possibly watch a cat video whilst taking care of business and feel okay with ourselves? So, who am I? I'm a global citizen, using a global product. And if I'm to benefit, shouldn't everyone else?
All right, and now we're back to our webinar on globalization and localization, experiences in the local Philippine context. So at this juncture, let me introduce our next guest speaker for this morning. He is a third-year student from College of Arts and Sciences, specifically in Mathematics and Statistics Department. He is also the current mayor of Bachelor of Science in Mathematics 3. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. John Mar Hagulina.
So, good morning, guys. How are you?
Very good, sir.
I'm okay. That's fine. I'm gonna present my topics. Just wait for a while. So, can you see my slides? So, topics to be discussed: global divides, north and south, local responses to globalization, export businesses and ICT sectors, local and international networking, levels of interaction of partnership, issue or problem faced concerning globalization and possible intervention. So first topic is global divide, South and North. So what is global South? This refers to the third world countries. So if you are familiar with that word, third world countries, it means that it comprises of countries with developing economies. So, nag-develop pa lang siya. It is not fully developed, which were initially referred, yes, to as a third world country during the Cold War. So na-start lang ni buo ning third world country katong Cold War. So example of the global south is Africa, South America, and Asia. And next is what is global north, called as first world country, comprised of countries which have developed economies. So compare na po sa global south, ang global south is nagadevelop pa lang while ang global north is kumbaga na-develop na siya and still developing. Then it account over 90% of all manufacturing industries in the world. So for example is Japan, United States of America, United Kingdom, China. Then if you notice, mga dato sila ng mga country. Next is major differences of North and South. North, less population, high wealth, high standard of living, high industrial development. So if you notice sa sa China, di ba ningon man ko nga first world country but daghan ang population. Makaingon ta nga less population siya pero kay tungod sa reason why nga ang ilahang GDP kay kumbaga enough sa mga tao didto. Kumbaga dili magkulang bitaw. Compared sa South is large population compared sa Pilipinas, for example. Ang GDP nato kay kumbaga gamay para sa atong individual person. And then sa North, high wealth, China, di ba dato kayo? While ang Pilipinas, low wealth, nagkautang-utang, bisagasa na lang, especially sa World Bank. Then North, high standard of living, while the South is low standard of living. Mabitaw na ang mga scientists na to dere ni adto og laing country kay kumbaga gusto nila ma-improve nilang sarili kay para sila ang Pilipinas kumbaga ubos pa compared sa other country. Then ang North is high standard, high industrial development rather. So while sa South is low industrial development. So kung makakita ka sa mga global north nga country or first world country, ang mga building dito, ang mga facility, ang mga machine, mga technology kay kumbaga super ka-advance compared sa atoa or sa other third world country. Kumbaga basic pa lang kayo ato ang mga technology, mga building. Kumbaga simple pa lang. So that's the next topic is local responses to globalization, export, business, and ICT sectors. Export sector. Mandated ni siya sa kuan. Mandated by the Export Development Act of 1994, the Confederation of the Philippine Exporters Foundation Cebu Incorporated, or what we call PhilExport Cebu, became the primary umbrella organization of the exporters in Central Visayas. As the largest multi-sectoral export group in the region, it represents the voice of the exporters and concern itself with matters of common interest among the members, industries, and sectors. Kaning PhilExport Cebu, nag-perform siya sa mga essential roles of providing leadership and direction to the exporting community, fielding the common vision of Cebu's export industry through the various export sector which are unified. Also, it facilitates the strategic agreements on issues vital to the exporting community and keep the productivity and professionalism, and lastly, the advocacy of legislation that sustain a favorable export climate in Cebu. Then, also pursuant to these rules, the organization maintains a 13-fold program. So, na sila yung program no, of service encompassing the elements essential for a thriving export industry in Cebu, namely, which includes a one-stop export documentation center, Export Development Act accreditation, endorsement to the trade fairs, so and also organization of trade shows and mission, community integration projects, market information, and membership database. Also, nag-perform sila sa roles which includes the government and institutional linkage, industry in strengthening, business advisory, and export-related information, and technical and management training and policy advocacy. This organization or or what we call Field Export Cebu also forged a partnership with Interactive Design to offer web services to its members. Based on the recently held export industry-wide consultation, exporters asserted that for the market linkage and information to be made faster and easier to access, so kailangan dapat siya na ay mga website kay mga tao karon kumbaga nag-base na siya sa mga technology, sa mga website. So nag-partnership sila sa interactive design para na sila website or web services. And the need to utilize the latest information and communication technology become an SOP. Thus, a website is identified as a must. So, kailangan din siya and urgent for the organization like Field Export and for the members of themselves. So, the next sector is the business sector. The Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So, mo ni siya pod ang gunit, kumbaga ang main topic ani, kumbaga main character sa kaning business sector, the Cebu Chamber of Conference and Industry. Uh, if you can read with the presentation, is to lead the market opportunity for local business. So, as the voice of business in Cebu, it seeks to initiate and influence the development plans of the government affecting businesses. Also, they promote and institutionalize linkage between the Cebu business community with domestic as well as foreign organizations. And also, they are strengthen the skills, capabilities, and resources of the organization as well as its members and business community. So, para nila ma-promote ang business o enterprises development, especially sa mga gagmay o mga medium nga enterprises, ang kaning Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry regularly conducts, number one, trade promotions, fair and exhibits, giving emphasis to small and medium enterprises in exploring a wide range of local market as well as in international market. Number two, trade missions to explore international business linkage. And three, conducting seminars, trainings, and fora in ICT, marketing and family business management, negotiation skills also, then sales, regional linkaging, and healthcare to gear them up in facing an increasingly competitive business environment in the global arena. So the next sector will be the ICT sector. Uh, the globalization of knowledge has led to many possibilities in the local economy. Growth in the electronic industry has paved the way for faster and wider information and communication technology diffusion in Cebu. So sa Cebu, mainly ang ICT profile kay kumbaga may table no. Ah, type of ICT organization, so daghan mga organization dito na ay internet. So sorry for the word. Lata ra kayo no. So internet service providers na ay 21 kabok or 21. Then internet cafes, they have 315, software developers, 38 employees of software developers. They have 1,900 number of registered internet subscribers. They have 42,000. Then estimated internet users 100,000. So, ngano na-appeal ni siyang ICT sector no sa local responses to globalization. Kumbaga ang ICT manggod kay kumbaga sila naga-provide sa website or mga internet nga para ang mga international business kay mapadali ang pag-communicate, mapadali ang transaction. So, mo na ang grabe ang pagsaka sa ICT sector sa Cebu since sila man po ang kusog sa mga business like Cebu Chamber katong akong gi-discuss kiniha. Then the next topic is local and international networking. Cebu is able to spread and learn more about capability building measures with the other local government units or LGUs by networking. Then trainings and sharing of best practices through the spring program are held in other LGUs such as Iligan, Bohol, and Naga City. So, kaning local and international networking ay mga representative from Cebu government nga and also from the other LGUs such as Quezon City and Antipolo in Luzon to meet with counterparts and learn about areas which they have successfully addressed. An example of the advantage of networking ay kumbaga maka-learn ang mga maka-learn ang mga small businesses bitaw na unsaon pag improve sa ilang business to make them a medium enterprises and also to make them a large enterprises. So, ang Cebu, nagapahimo sila local and international networking. Then, the next one is the level of interaction of partnership. The town twinning program is an effective mechanism of LGUs to establish links both locally and internationally. The levels of partnership may be viewed as follows. So, pinakaubos ning kuan cultural exchange. Ang example ani shaman. Kailangan siguro mo ang shaman no, si shaman. So, shaman sending delegation to the Sinulog Festival. Cebu sending English teacher to teach Chinese students. So, from the word cultural exchange, so, ang taga Cebu, nagpadala og mga English teachers to teach Chinese students para at least makabalo ang mga taga Chinese about sa saan pag istorya og English. So, cultural exchange na siya. Then, next is educational exchange. Cebuano student, ang example ani is Cebuano student exposure to school system in Honolulu. So if you are familiar with the exchange students bitaw kanang sa eskwelahan, so mo na siya also an example na from Davao City, gi-exchange siya sa US nga school. So mo na siya example also. Then the next one is the local government exchange. Ang pasabot ani is official visit by city mayors to share experiences in organization and management. Kung makabantay bitaw mo sa mga balita nga ang kana nga mayor niadto sa laing lugar, ah, ang purpose ana nila is kanang magistorya about business kung saan pag-improve sa ilang lugar. Mo na siya example sa local government exchange. The next one is uh, technical partnership. An example is paramedic training for Cebu City health workers by highly mere experts. Highly mere experts. Ano siya example? The fifth one is business partnership. So, mga businessman na, mga businesswoman, mga dagko ng tao, nag-interaction sila interaction para ng private meeting bitaw ni Henry C. Ato namatay sa una og ni Danding Quangpo, tagiya sa San Miguel. So muna siya example sa business partnership. Then the last one is people to people partnership. So as basic example kanang a simple nga interaction sa tao, kumbaga makagain man gud na siya og mga lesson about panalitan sa business, sa ilang unsaon pag-improve sa ilang business, ug unsa po yung mga dapat i-avoid para sa ilang business. So, mo siya pinaka-highest na level of interaction in terms of partnership, kaning people-to-people partnership. And the next one is the issue and problem faced concerning globalization. One of the issues faced by the metropolitan areas or ang pasabot ani kay ang Cebu concerning globalization as pointed out by Scott is that although local government and some state authorities have gained greater autonomy from the state in the context of accelerated globalization, they have not necessarily gained greater policy initiative. So although kasabutan ni although ang ilahang globalization responses kay taas, pero ang mga palisiya nila dito, kumbaga hinay ba? For example, kung makabantay mo ang Cebu kay number one sa human trafficking, number one sa drugs. So, ang kanang drugs mong kumbaga pwede mo na siya may mong business sa mga businessman or businesswoman. So, also, kuan po na, impact po na siya sa globalization. So, taas silang globalization responses. Pero ang ilahang policy nga kanang i-avoid ang drugs, i-avoid ang human trafficking, kumbaga hinay. So, mo siya pasabot ni Scott about sa issue and problem concerning about globalization. Then, in an acceptance of international realities should be foremost in the minds of local policymakers. In business, it's suggested that a shift of focus can be made from manufacturing and upgrading the service sector and exploring other opportunities found in ICT and tourism, where Cebu may have competitive advantage. Niche marketing for ICT capable businesses and tourism that caters the retirees and provision of medical services can be the thrust. For local government, there is a need to solve problems on infrastructure and utilities such as shortage in water supply, high power costs, arrest, urban decay, example, problem on garbage, peace and order, squatters, and also re-engineer institution. Uh, Also, in streamingly bureaucracy, changes are needed to create a culture and transparency, flexibility, and responsiveness which fits the norms and needed to effectively adapt to a globalizing or localizing world. So, muna siya ang mga issues and problem for concerning the globalization. So, possible interventions, ako nabasa ganiha, are needed, excuse me, policy interventions are needed to meet and to meet the challenges brought about by globalization. So, akong nabasa ganiha, no? Ang local government dapat isolve niya ang problem sa infrastructure and utilities sa Cebu, for example sa Cebu kanang shortage in water supply, taas kayo nga singil sa kuryente kay kumbaga mao pud na yung makaapekto bitaw sa business. Dili na sila mo tuko dira kay mahal kayo ang singil. Also kanang mga basura kay pangit po kayo lang tawon no nga mga international business partners ang mga partner nila kay makakita mga basura dayon pangit po kayo kung gubot dayon also kanang mga squatters kay kumbaga dili kaaya-aya sa kuan ba sa mga international businessman nga motukod og building nga dool sa squatter area. So muna siya yung mga possible intervention na dapat himuon sa usa ka local government. Also, there is a need for a deliberate effort on the part of the private sector and LGU to draw up a collaborative program to reach sectors uh, adversely affected by globalization. So the implication to policy include the necessity to create a decision-making environment where feedback and policy inputs from a wider range of stakeholders and encourage them. Multi-layered governance should be embodied not merely in terms of symbolic representation by business groups or non-government organizations, but in functional representation to local decision-making bodies where suggested action plans are actually carried out for governance to be made more effectively in globalizing or localizing environment. Devolution of competencies from local government to those other sector need to take place. So also na policy about education. The education policy also has to be oriented in such a way that does not aim only to produce a labor force that meets global labor demands, but also provide empowerment opportunities for people in excluded rural areas through access to vital information. ICT as a tool offers possibilities to bridge the education gap and in marginalized communities to improve health and livelihood. So Cebu's city, nevertheless, continues to face challenges as adjustment are made to global conditions. So since na itselay local responses about globalization, so dili man na mahimo nga walay mga challenges. So for every response dapat na kay na siya challenges. So since ikaw may gusto nga mo response ka, so dapat natay adjust. So ikaw na bahala kung sa i-adjust nimo about sa imong gusto, about sa imong gi-response about globalization. So I think this is the last slide. So thank you and have a good day. Before I end this presentation, I will leave a quote from Barack Obama. Globalization is a fact because of technology, because of an integrated global supply chain, because of changes in transportation, and we're not going to be able to build a wall around that. So lalong kay siya nga pagka-saying. So kita mismo kuan ani magunahuna og tarong about aning saying ni Barack Obama. So I think I'm done presenting my presentation, and I hope you've learned something. Thank you and have a good day.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for that very informative discussion. Wow, very ano talaga yung topic no, very interesting, especially right now that we're in the midst of health and economic crisis. It will help particularly in uplifting the Philippine economy. Anyways, we'll take a short break first and then we'll proceed to question and answer portion. So just stay right there.
Globalization. Let's think about it. But first, let's talk about chocolate. This is the equator, and this is where I grew up. When I was young, I lived under the rule of protectionist policies like import substitution industrialization, which basically means economies should try to make things at home rather than rely on things made in other countries. So we had no time for bratwurst, burritos, bald eagles, Swiss Army knives, kiwis, kangaroos, or Earl Grey tea. We hated Earl Grey tea. So now you're probably thinking, chocolate, you said talk about chocolate. To which I say, I'm getting there. The area I lived in was and is famous for making amazing cocoa. And because we couldn't import anything, we also made chocolate. Terrible, terrible chocolate. Even my dad made chocolate, and I hated it. Your chocolate's terrible, Dad, I would always tell him, which is a true story. With no imports, there was no competition, and therefore no need to improve the product. Day in, day out, much of my pocket money went on a bitter, brittle, and sometimes oddly crunchy chocolate. But then something amazing happened. The borders opened to trade, and in came the Belgians, the Germans, and the Swiss, bringing with them their rich, creamy chocolate. With open borders, our abundance of cocoa was now accessible to the world. The industry boomed, as did many others. Jobs were in abundance, and more importantly, I finally had world class chocolate. But not all was well. When the Swiss, Belgians, and Germans came and blew this chocolate thing wide open, many local producers went out of business, including my father. Because remember, his chocolate sucked. In fact, his only redeeming quality was that he knew a good cocoa bean when he saw it. Unlike my father, some producers survived, forced to improve their product to be competitive. So it wasn't all bad. Our export industry was leading to new jobs across multiple industries. And the chocolate? The sweet chocolate. So, what's a young boy to do? I knew I still hated Earl Grey tea, but otherwise, I was divided. Whilst we now had access to the wonders of the world, some local producers were losing their livelihood. After much deliberation, I did what all young boys do best nothing. My father saw the light, closed up shop, and got a job picking cocoa beans, which he was good at, as I already mentioned. The guy knew his beans. I realized that it was all a question of the long run and how it would all work out in the end, which is tough because how long is the long run? So there you go. That's all I have to say on chocolate. I guess now we can finally talk about globalization.
All right, so again, we're back. And at this point, we will be having the question and answer portion. So this part seems to be one of the most awaited, or should I say, one of the most important part of the show because the reactors or the viewers will be given a chance to ask our dear speakers. At this part, the speakers will answer two questions each from the reactors. All right. So to begin with, the first question will come from Mr. Aljan Magsayo. And just a reminder, you can choose the speaker that you wish to answer your question. Okay, let's start.
So, good day everyone. My question is for Carla V. What are the factors why that globalization existed in our society?
So, good day, sir. Regarding to your question, the factors why globalization existed first is to intertwine countries with the products that are globally known and produced but adjusted to local taste. Second is to increase competition for a better market so we will have cheaper products but are better ones. The third factor is economic growth since mas mag-increase man ang competition sa market kay mas daghan na ang mga locally produced product. So, kapag i-localize pa nila ang products nila, so there will be a growth and increase in number of persons who will purchase their products. I think I've answered your question, sir.
Yes, thank you, Miss Carla.
Okay, thank you, Miss Carla and Mr. Magsayo. By the way, do you have any more further questions or do you have any more questions for our speakers?
Yes, please. I have one more question for Mr. Janmar Hagulina.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This pandemic is an outcome of globalization.
I think Mr. Magsayo, coronavirus or this pandemic has been due to the movement of infected people from the place of origin to the other places, practicing negligence and concealing their infections. Their movements were as per necessity and opportunity created due to globalization. As such, for me, I can't consider or I don't consider this pandemic as a consequence of this globalization since this coronavirus is all about health issues, negligence of the people, and I think there is no relationship or there is no connection between coronavirus or this pandemic and globalization. I think I've answered your question, Sir Aljan Magsayo.
So, all right. I hope that answers your questions, Mr. Magsayo, and you acquire something from it. Okay. So now let's proceed to the next questions, and it will come from Miss Aljane Mar Intong.
Yes, hello. I have question for Miss Carla Masibay.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, how has globalization affected development in the Southeast Asian countries?
As what you have seen in the ads, Asian countries also improve through the imported products, which are very useful in producing better goods and a cheaper ones. Also, we are able to export locally produced products worldwide. Highly industrialized countries impacted the developing countries through partnerships that will benefit both parties. Actually, Asia gained scale on 7 or 8 types of laws in the product in the past decades. Particularly, those 7 or 8 types are trade, capital, transport, culture, environment, resources, knowledge, and people. As ASEAN countries open borders, opportunities are also opened so that we can produce a better economy and also in political aspect within the ASEAN countries.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Miss Intong, or do you have any more questions for our speakers?
Uh, I have one more questions
Okay, you can
for
proceed, ma'am.
Mr. Hagolina. Will ecology become a key aspect of globalization in the 21st century?
Uh, hasn't ecology always been a key aspect to globalization? If you think broadly and include agriculture, such as soil, land, and water, people have moved across the world in search of land and space from more crowded areas. Sometimes these have been poorer people without resources, and sometimes wealthier people, but whatever their socioeconomic circumstances, they are determined to improve their socioeconomic well-being within the ecology and climatic conditions of the region. Perhaps this question posed is really asking whether consideration of ecology will become a major component of globalization. So, for instance, a mining company will think carefully about the construction of mine in a certain ecologically sensitive area, or will their shareholders and public at a large guide them to do so? Well, this is a great hope for humanity that we have this level of sensitivity in our thinking and also the common sense to understand that if we wish to survive in the future, we will need to understand and react positively to the drive to maintain ecological well-being and sustainability of the world. So relating to this aspect of global warming, so I think ecology is not very effective in 21st century. I think that's
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Thank you. Miss Lovejoy, I think you didn't on your speaker.
I'm sorry, my bad. All right, so we're done with the question and answer. Now let's proceed to the next part. So at this point, we will give the spotlight to our dear reactors. They will give us insights or some knowledge that they acquire all throughout the discussion. So Miss Aljane Mar Indong, it's your turn.
Yes. Um, First, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this event. And I learned that localization occurs when globalization and localization collide. Despite global trends toward homogenization, difference and or the desire for difference remains very strong among local cultures. Localization also helps consumers understand a product or media in a local sense, while a global product or media may seem irrelevant to them. In localization, a sense of locality is created top-down. In conclusion, while profound differences do exist between people of different cultures, there are also many similarities. Perhaps as globalization progresses and cultures become more fluid, then people will be more able to understand each other. Thank you.
All right. That was very impressive, Miss Intang. Big thanks to our speakers for discussing the topics accordingly. And the last one who will give, I mean, the last one to give his insight is Mr. Aljun Magsaya.
So I was enlightened about the globalization of and its importance in our society. First of all, localization makes sense when a firm faces high pressure for local responsiveness and where there are significant opportunities for leveraging valuable skills within a multinational global network of operation. And through localization, international products are adapted to the local tastes of the population, and thereby local communities are introduced to different aspects of foreign cultures. This helps multinational companies to grow and gain trust to the people of particular regions. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. So it is really evident that in the Philippines, globalization has brought many job opportunities to all Filipino people. The government encourages foreign companies to establish business and open many jobs to Filipino workers even abroad. So the impact of globalization helps the Philippine community to be more aware of what was happening in the Philippines. It also gives the idea to many Filipino people to have more knowledge and information on the Philippine society. And at present, globalization is more effective in the Philippines. It helps improve to the local and foreign companies, the culture, the education, and of course, the development of the economy. And lastly, globalization is also important in the Philippines and how it works in the economy and the development of technology. So before we end this webinar, I'd like to extend my gratitude to our dear speakers and as well as our reactors for your time and effort. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And
Thank you also, Miss Lovely,
Thank
for
you, Miss.
thank you.
hosting this event.